All right, so here we're going to do the simplest buffer overflow without shellcode. Shellcode is the code that gives you remote control of the box where you can type in arbitrary commands. This one, we're just going to be able to inject commands one by one. Anyway, we have a simple 32-bit program, and I should have it all ready to go here. Yeah, so cat pwd.c. All right, so here's the program. All there is to it, it goes to main. Main tests the password, and if it returns a non-zero value, it prints fail, otherwise you win. But when you go to test password, it reads in a password. Now here, it defines an array that has room for 10 characters and inputs up to 50 with fgetS. So you can have an overflow, and it always returns 1, so no password is ever any good. You never get anything but the fail. And you're trying to execute the win, which you cannot get through the logic of the program written by the developer, but you can by exploiting this buffer overflow, and that's what we're going to do. So you compile the thing as 32-bit code with this command, and then you can debug it. And so we're going to we compile it. Now we can run it and see how it works. So we'll run pwd, the 32-bit version, and it's enter your password. So I put in pass, and it says fail. And it's going to stay fail for any password I put in. But if I put in this password that is long, then I get a segmentation fault. That's an error, not handled by the programmer. So what this has done is somehow it has caused it to try to read or write to a memory location that is not available to this program. That's what a segmentation fault is. Now, as I mentioned before, programs automatically reload to a random memory location every time you launch them, and that is a problem for what we're doing this time. You want to turn that off. And the way you turn it off is sudo su- to become root, put in your password, and then this command changes a system parameter which stops that randomization, making your system more like an old Linux system before that was in there, which is what we want to do for the immediate project. We're going to use an exploitation technique that worked on older Linux systems, say older than 10 or 15 years ago. And now I can exit from root, and now the program will not randomly relocate in memory. It'll make our life easier. And when you run the password, in fact, you can see it tells you the address, and notice it was FF9C, and next time it was FFAA, so it was changing. Now it's not going to change. If I run it, and put in a password, and run it again, and put in a password, now it's always the same, FFFFD4E6, so it's not moving in memory anymore, which is what we need for this kind of attack. So now we do a debug it, and we use quiet mode just to get rid of an ugly banner on pwd32. And now we can use source code debugging because you compile it with the -G flag that connects the source code to the executable, which is the easier way to do it. So list 1 to 13. Here's the source code from 1 to 13. And I think I'll get rid of the colors. Set style enabled off. I think it's easier for the video and also for me to see it. All right, so now you see the code, and the point is here is where the overflow happens in line 8. This is where it reads up to 50 characters and puts it in a space where there's only room for 10. So I'm going to put a break on line 9. So before it tries to return, I want to examine the state of memory. So I put a break at line 9. Okay, and now I'm going to run it. I'm going to start with a simple password, and usually what you do in this kind of work is you put in AAAA. I'll put in like 8 A's. The reason you typically use a capital A is because you just get memorized that's a 41 in hex, so it's easy to spot. If you put in some long complicated word, it would be hard to spot. Now I can examine the registers to see the condition of memory at the breakpoint, and I'll see that ESP is 480 and EBP is 498. And so I want to examine the stack. I'll do x/12x of ESP. I'm hoping to get from 480 to 498, and that'll do it. Okay, the first word you see here is 490, 494, 498. So this is the current stack frame. And here's the A's I put in, A. There's a couple there and a couple there. You see the 41s. So the A's I put in are here. This is the stack frame. This is the return pointer, 5655. When it returns, it's going to return to that address. So if I continue the program, It runs and just prints fail and terminates normally. It doesn't crash or anything because I didn't put in a string that was too long. I only put in 8 characters and there was room for 10. So this is the correct return address. And by the way, you can see that if you disassemble main. If you look at the main function, here's the test PW, and here's the test to see whether it was 0 or not. So it calls test P0 here, so this is the return address. When it returns from test P0, it should go to this address, 56, 55, 62, 55, and that's what you see there, 56, 55, 62, 55. That's what goes on. When you call a routine, the calling routine pushes. It pushes the return address on the stack, the caller or the callee, and that's how it knows to return to, where to go to when it's done. So now we're going to overflow the stack with 40 characters. So we run it again and put in this long password, and now it hits the breakpoint. So now I do info registers. Now, the stack is still going from 480 to 498, ESP to EBP. This is the fundamental flaw with C. I just put in a longer string, and it did not reserve any extra memory to store that string, which is the way a modern language like Python or Java would. It continues to have exactly the same size for the stack frame. So I can look at it with X12X ESP just to examine 12 hexadecimal words of memory at the stack pointer, and 498 is where it ends. So that's 498 here. That is the stack frame. And as you can see, I have clobbered the return pointer. Now 41 is A, 42 is B, C, D, E, F, FFGG has entered this return pointer. Now it's going to try to go to that address instead of the right address. So if I continue, it's going to crash with the pointer, with the instruction pointer containing 46, 46, 47, 47. It might not be obvious that this is the instruction pointer, but it is. You can do info registers and see, and here's EIP, and it now contains FFGG, 46, 46, 47, 47, and that's not a legal memory address for this program. By the way, if you want to see the memory regions allocated to this program, it's info proc mappings. And let me make a bigger window to contain it all. Okay. I'll just do it again so it looks tight. All right, there you are. And now you'll see, here's the actual program I'm running. The other stuff is libraries. There's the heap. So here are the memory regions legal for this program to use. And as you can see, they're all 56, 55 something. They're not that address FFGG, which is somewhere across. That's why it crashes. All right, now the stack is down here at FFFF. It's always way down there. That would also be legal for the program to use. But the FFGG address is not legal. It is EIP. Here it is, 47, 47, 46, 46. And you can see 47 is not in any legal ranges. That's why it crashed. So now we can take over the box. And to figure out what address we want to put in, we wanted to run the win function. So we disassemble win, and now we know this is the address. We want to jump to that address. So I'm going to copy that and put it in the clipboard, and now I know how to make an attack. You put in this password, but you take the last 2 F's and the first 2 G's and you replace them with the win address. These are the ones that end up in the instruction pointer. Now to do that, usually you can't just type it because some of those values are not printable, so you have to use Python and write a little script to do it. And I've got that here, so I'm going to quit from the debugger and then look at the exploit file, which is here. All right, so the win function was here, 56, 55, 62 OB, and there it is. So I print A through F, then I put that in. You have to put it in backwards because Intel is little endian. Your strings go in one way and numbers go, you have to put it 56, 55, 62, 0B, and then the postfix. It is a good practice when doing exploit development, which is what this is, to always keep the input the same total length, because an input of a different length might crash the program at a different point. Now in this simple program, that's not an issue, but it's a good practice to always keep your input the same length. So I finished padding it here, so then I print prefix plus EIP plus postfix, just changing those 4 characters into this address. And that should do it. If I run this, PWD32, and I take the input from running that program, which is exploit. So that would be this. I should get, well, I expected it to work. Let me just follow my instructions. We'll see what I did wrong as we go ahead. All right. Now what I did here was I wrote it. Let's just try running that program first. All right, and there it is. It prints AF, then it prints some somewhat unprintable junk, and then it continues. All right, so if you want to test it, you can put it in an output file. Let's see if I can take this. This will run it and put it in a file called attack.pwd32. That's another way to do it. And now you can examine that file with ls-l to see how long it is. The attack file is 40 bytes long, which is what you expect. I had the first 10 characters of the alphabet, 4 times each. And if you use XXD, that lets you examine this file in a binary way. This lets you see it as a binary dump. So now I can see, here's the address, here's the hexadecimal characters, here's the ASCII characters, here's the 4 characters I injected, and you can see here it's 5655620B. So that shows that the file is correct, the attack file. And now I can test it in the debugger. Let's do that. gdb-q, pwd32. Oh, gdb, gotta be. All right, and then put the break at 9 again to break after the overflow, but before it tries to return. Now I run --args less than attack. This is what we just did in the lecture. This is going to get input from that file instead of from the keyboard. That's the way I can put in unprintable characters that I couldn't type, because that Python script has written those unprintable characters in here, like 0B. So that'll run, and now I'm at the breakpoint. Now I can do info registers and see again the stack is from 470 to 488. I can examine the stack. And 470 to 488 is here. And there's the return pointer. Now it's 5655620B. That looks pretty good. So if I continue, I now get you win. And that's important. And I should mention, the number one question I always get from students is they just try to run my Python script without modifying it. And the point is, this address will be different on your system. You have to do disassemble win and find out where it is. It depends on your version of Linux, your version of the compiler, and all sorts of things. So you have to customize it for your system. This is the number that works on my system, but it won't be the same on yours, probably. Anyway, if you get the you win message, then you'll be able to get the flag, and you'll be able to run it outside the debugger. So you could do pwd32 and take the input from that attack file, and here you get you win. By the way, we did some collateral damage. This was the return pointer. This should have been the saved base pointer, and we stomped it with invalid data. That's why it crashes later. You could write a more careful exploit that also puts the right value here, and then it wouldn't cause an error message or crash later. This is a sloppy exploit that does what we want, and then it crashes, which is, just because it's the first one, we're not being as careful as we could be to make a top-notch exploit here. All right, and so now that you've done that, you can do the 64-bit version, which is very much the same. The only difference is the registers are longer. The same logic, you can use the same source code, but when you compile it, now you have RBP and RSP, and they're 64 bits long. And you have to put in longer data here, and then you have 64 bits, which is 8 characters of 8 of these characters are used, which is FF. The last 2 Fs, all the Gs, and the first 2 Hs are now what goes in the instruction pointer, but the same logic applies. You disassemble win, you'll get a 64-bit address for win, and you can inject it. And you can get the same result. Putting that target address in. The Python exploit file is very similar, but the addresses are just longer. You can get in, and then there's a couple fun ones. I wrote these when going to DEF CON China. I was in 14 hours on the airplane, and I realized I could do everything on my machine with virtual machines. So I wrote these online ones because I also realized I can put a GDB script on my server, so you can exploit my remote server this way. So if I hear you can put up a string, all you can do is send a string to it. But when you send a string, this one will run a script on the server, a GDB script, so it shows you the source code, which I have redacted. There are 2 flags defined, first flag and second flag, and then it will break at a certain point and then show you, it'll dump the assembly code. This is the disassemble win. Here's the win address that you're going to need. Here's the registers, ESP to EBP. EBP is C48. Here's a dump of the stack. So C48 goes to here, and that's the return pointer, 5655. And so here's the A's I put in, A. So you can put in any string you want. Now, in this case, to do this project, what I highly recommend is don't use the form, just manipulate the URL directly, because it's easy to inject arbitrary hexadecimal characters into a URL. So there's this thing I submitted the first time. There's another copy of it. Now, suppose I want to put in unprintable characters. I can put in AAAA, then BBBB, then I could put %04, %05. That's how you put hexadecimal characters in a URL. %06, and then say CCCC. You can just do it right there like that. You don't need to ever write a Python script or anything. You can just inject the code right there. And now, when you look on the stack, you will find AAA, the 42 is B's, 42, 42. Then here's the 5, 6 I put in. Here's the 04. Here's the 05 and the 06. And then here's the C's, 43, 43. So you can inject arbitrary hexadecimal characters by just putting them right there in the URL, which is very handy. So you can figure out how to get the flags. The first flag you'll get by just getting the 30th character to be a binary 7, %07. And the second flag you'll get by running the win function, for which you have to take that win address and put it in backwards. You have to do the thing remotely here. So it's another way to practice it. And there are other ones below here where you do more of the same. Here is a 64-bit version. If I put in AAAA, it's 64-bit code. Again, there's a flag you can get by running the win function. So the registers are now 64-bit registers. Here's RSP and RBP. It goes from 30 to 60. Here's the stack, 30 to 60. That's the stack. This is the return pointer. I guess looks kind of funny. Anyway, you can play with this one and get it going. Again, you can run the win function. All right. And then there's one more where you actually exploit a server with address space layout randomization. And the way you do it is you can practice developing your exploit here in AAAA and debug it until you're running in a debugger. Debugger automatically turns off address space layout randomization. In the debugger, nothing will ever randomize. So you can develop your exploit here, and once you've got it developed, then you run it, and it will show you the win address here. And you have to modify your exploit to go to that win address and put your string in here. So you can exploit it, and this is one way to exploit code with address space layout randomization. If there's a leak, and you can find out where it is, some address is available to you, which tends to happen in Windows. For a while there was EBX always pointed to something. If you can find any clue where it is, then you can adjust your code dynamically to follow it. And that's what you can do here. Like every time you do this, this is going to be different. F7701. If you refresh this page, now it's F7741. This is a random unpredictable number. You'll have to adjust your exploit to fix that number. Anyway, those are all worth extra credit. And one thing to know, though, by the way, I forgot to mention, this does not take characters like that. It takes hex. So if you wanted to put in A's, you'd put in 41, 41, 41, 41. That's so you can put in binary code easily. So now, if you look on the stack, it will have the AAA. There it is. All right. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you. This project is worth a whole lot of points if you do the extra credit part, and I highly recommend it. As I mentioned, this is probably the most important project in the course. If you understand this one, that's pretty much the meat of everything. All other attacks are just minor variations on buffer overflows. This was the classic one that led to the majority of memory corruption exploits for several decades now. So that's what I wanted to show you. I'm going to stop this recording.